Let's quickly just touch base with our reporter, Lindsay Dentlinger. Lindsay, the House has been suspended. What are you getting there from the ground?
Well, as you can imagine, Mfundo, what our viewers are seeing, it's quite traumatic to watch these kinds of scenes in the House and be so up and close and to witness what we're seeing. But again, repeating on what we saw yesterday, several more EFF MPs in the House than they were here yesterday, and so the disruptions really at a heightened level today. We had started almost an hour ago now, and the proceedings, as you've mentioned, are being temporarily suspended, probably just to get some calm and some order, and whether we resume shortly. The Speaker quite adamant that she was not going to allow these disruptions to derail the business of the House today. But what we've seen, by my count now, at least 5 EFF MPs evicted from the chamber for what the Speaker was ruling points of order which she had ruled out of order and not enough to stop the business of the day here. So I'm just going to have a quick look at the screen alongside me. As you can see in the House, people still have MPs still on the floor of the House, proceedings temporarily suspended. But as you can imagine, it is not pleasant for other MPs in the House who are sitting very close and on the floor where this is happening to have to watch and also to take care of their own safety. And so we saw a number of them standing up and moving elsewhere in the chamber. But still, even though the business of the House suspended, there are still words flying across the floor between members of various parties.
It seemed that the Speaker was at pains to explain that she cannot have similar points of order being raised by members. And it seemed that one of the EFF members was stating that, no, in other instances, we want clarity on that point of order that was raised by somebody else. What did you make of that?
Yes, sorry, I'm just taking apart. These are the scenes, sorry, just to show you what's just happening outside of the chambers. These are what's colloquially known as the parliamentary bouncers who are then deployed into the chamber to remove MPs who the Speaker rules out of order. But to your question there, yes, we saw that, the Speaker making the point that the points of order that these EFF members are raising are not with in terms of the rules enough to suspend business. They are the allegations that are being levelled here against the President are untested. We saw the ANC Deputy Chief Whip Doris Lekude to her feet, also pointing out rules of the House in terms of the fact that these points of orders, these allegations that are made, they have to be tested and there has to be evidence before the House, none of which we have. We're just going to take, you'll see now some EFF MPs leaving the House, would appear voluntarily during this break. Whether they'll make a return when proceedings resume, unclear. But as I said, the contingent here greater today, and the Speaker not accepting their explanations for why they want the business of the House to be adjourned, essentially saying that they do not want to be addressed by President Cyril Ramaphosa, saying they didn't want to be accomplice and accomplices to what they were terming illicit activities.
No, certainly very disappointing scenes, I must say, and quite concerning, because this is something that was sustained even yesterday for an hour and a half. Actually, my colleague Masego joins us now. She's on standby. Masego, some very disturbing scenes that we're seeing there live.
I saw that as well, Mfundo, as I was watching you and Lindsay have that conversation, and I saw that there was violence at some point, Lindsay, with between the security, Parliament security, and the EFF. I'm just wondering if the EFF has said anything. I know that they've accused Parliament security of harassment.
Well, we saw that being raised in the House, the female EFF MPs alleging that male members of the protection security services who are standing alongside me are touching them inappropriately, and they were taking issue with the House. But certainly from what I could see, we saw a female member of the EFF evicted. She was also evicted yesterday. Quite traumatic, a lot of hair pulling, but she was taken out of the House by two female members, one of whom you're seeing on screen right now. And so the Speaker being very cautious that female members of the House are only being removed by female members of the of the protection services, and so claims from EFF MPs that they are being manhandled. Yesterday we also heard from them saying that they would lay charges if they were injured in any way, but we also saw them throwing water at these protection officers while they were trying to remove people from the chamber. And as I said, the last of them being a female MP, lots of hair pulling, rather unpleasant to watch, and a little bit traumatic when you're standing up and close to watching that level of violence playing out in an august house like this. You know, the EFF MPs saying that in a society where gender-based violence is so rife, you know, it's being perpetuated really right here on the floor for all to see. So really not pleasant scenes to witness right here in, as I say, an august house, and essentially from leaders who are expected to lead by example.
Lindsay, it was quite disturbing to actually watch those visuals, and also as a South African I feel very embarrassed because this will obviously get to the rest of the world in terms of what happened in Parliament today. I'm just interested in terms of the President. How was he whisked out of Parliament, and do you know where he is at the moment?
Masejo, from where I was standing, I didn't have a good line of sight of where the President was, and my focus was really on what was happening on the floor. But he has since been removed from the chamber. We did see him very briefly on the podium beginning his address, and he has a seat alongside the front, the table staff. So I can't tell you exactly as to his reaction at that time. It's, as I said, from where I am, not a good line of sight. We are sitting in a venue that only accommodates about 100 MPs and a very limited number of media people. So, and we're right at the back of the room, not elevated as we normally would be in the old building as we know it, where we have a good a view of what's going on. And as I said, because of the small confines of the venue in which we are sitting, and given these violent scenes that are playing out, we also have to observe certain protocols in terms of our movements are a little bit curtailed, also just to, you know, stay out of the fracas. But certainly, Masejo, yeah, I mean, all around the world these scenes will now be beamed, and as I said, in a society where gender-based violence is so rife, and it really just is really contradictory, and the words ring hollow just of the President just yesterday talking about what government is doing and the strides they're trying to make in gender-based violence, but yet we see these kinds of violent scenes playing out right here on the floor of Parliament.
I did see those scenes, Lindsay. It was, as I said, very disturbing to watch, as basically both sides were fighting each other like that so violently. But Lindsay, do we know how long the suspension is? Did the Speaker say what time she'll try to get the business of the House back in order?
Well, over all the noise and the ruckus that was going on, I didn't hear her particularly give an indication of when they'll be back in the House, but ordinarily we would hear the bells ring, which would essentially signal that MPs have around 10 minutes to get back and into the House and seated. They are, I'm just looking at a screen alongside me, there are still some members in the House seated, standing around, so I think the Speaker is probably taking advice now from her table staff as to how to proceed. She was quite adamant that she was not going to let these violent scenes and have MPs disrupt the business of the House, which is essentially we're here for the President to reply to last night's marathon open debate. So how she is going to get that business underway while there are still members of the EFF who have not been evicted and are within their rights to be present in the House. It remains to be seen whether they will try to cause any further disruption until, as we saw yesterday, they are eventually all moved or removed rather from the chamber.
Just quickly, Lindsay, for those of us who are joining us probably a little bit late in terms of what happened today and what the president was actually supposed to do, he's supposed to actually be responding to the debate that took place after his presidency budget vote speech yesterday. So South Africans will not be able, at least for now, hear what he has to say in response to what the MPs were telling him yesterday.
And that's essentially the point, Maseko, that the Speaker was trying to make. And we even saw the DA Chief Whip, Natasha Mazzoni, standing up today. And even though the DA did take issue yesterday with the President about him, evading that topic which has engulfed his presidency over the last week, today she stood up and said, we are here to listen to the President reply. Despite all the issues that were raised yesterday during the debate, the expectations that they had from the President, essentially we're here to listen to him reply, and essentially that reply would include those criticisms that parties levelled against him yesterday for not addressing this hot potato issue which has just made headlines around the country for the past week or so, and so as you say, the nation and the MPs who criticise the President are here waiting to hear what he's going to say in response to those criticisms. And so if these proceedings are not able to continue today, we will not get answers. We don't know whether the President will address what the DA yesterday called Ramaphosa's Nkandla. They said if he didn't address these issues, come clean, take the nation into his confidence, explain exactly what happened on his farm, that would be a missed opportunity. But the EFF having none of it. They insisting today that he'd been charged, that he is being investigated by law enforcement agencies. Sinao Tambo of the EFF, who raised that first point of order that set off this chain of events that we have witnessed over the past hour, citing the oath of office that the President has taken and saying that given that oath of office, the EFF is of the view that he's not a fit and proper person to hold this presidency, to address them, to address the nation, and that really is what set off today's scenes that we have witnessed here. But the Speaker ruling that all these points of orders, there's no evidence currently before Parliament that would prevent the Speaker from allowing the President to proceed. So that's really where we're at, Maseko, and as you said, if the President is not able to deliver that address today, we won't know what his responses are to those criticisms that were levelled against him during hours of debate here yesterday on the vote of his presidency.
I'm hoping, I don't know, Lindsay, I'm hoping I actually hear some of his responses, because I do think that some of the issues that the MPs raised yesterday are quite valid, and I would like to hear some clarity from the President. But of course, if it's going to turn out the way that we're seeing in terms of the pictures that ENCA is currently showing on screen, it probably is for the best for them to possibly postpone. But of course, we'll hear that from you a little later, Lindsay. But tell me, in terms of a briefing, the President was supposed to have a briefing at around 12:30 this afternoon. What does this now mean? Does it delay the entire business of the day? Besides delaying Parliament, does it mean that it also delays the rest of the program for him for the rest of the day?
Well, Maseko, we know that this is probably the more important engagement of the two that the President has scheduled for this morning. Yes, you are correct. He is due to speak on the sidelines of Parliament here today to several media houses who have been invited for a one-on-one engagement with the President. That was due to happen around 12:30 today, so there is some time yet, but obviously that was premised on the indication that perhaps proceedings proceedings here would last about an hour or just over an hour. That is essentially the kind of time that is taken to respond to a debate. So as I would think that, this is the President's priority today. If these proceedings can continue, then I would expect that any engagement he has with the media might be shifted out to later in the day. But we don't know for sure right now, because I think the main order and the main business of today is to get the President back on the podium to, as you say, answer those many questions that you and other South Africans have about the status of his presidency right now. And so I would think that that would be the priority.
Lindsay, I know that we've been speaking for quite a while, but it's still our breaking news story at the moment. Just remind me very quickly, Lindsay, we know as South Africans that ever since the EFF has gotten seats in Parliament, they have tried, in the manner that they did today, tried to get answers from the sitting president. It happened during Jacob Zuma's time, and they have been kicked out of the House before. But today, have we seen scenes that we saw today? And just remind me if this is the first time that the National Speaker is then forced to suspend the business of the House for a few minutes.
Well, this level of violence, you know that the House has not really been sitting during the lockdown, so it has been, so ordinarily we wouldn't see this kind of violent scenes, but certainly in terms of the current Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, this is certainly, these last 2 days, has certainly been the first time she's had to rule and deal with these kinds of violent scenes that you are seeing today. And we know when the President started his presidency back in 2018 or when he was elected in 2019, the EFF had pledged to give him the opportunity. They said they wouldn't try to disrupt him and to cause chaos. We did see the State of the Nation address delayed like this, I think it was 2 years ago now, 3 years ago, but up until now we haven't seen this kind of thing happen, partially due to the lockdown and the fact that the National Assembly hasn't been sitting in the manner that they are at present. We're just trying to give you a little peek from the side of the door, but our cameras are not allowed onto the floor of the House. But these are the scenes you're seeing inside right now. Some of the MPs choosing to stay seated for the time being and waiting to see whether proceedings will continue. So no indication quite yet when that might happen, but certainly the expectation that it will resume in whatever form. So some of them are still hanging about waiting. But certainly, Masego, not since for some time have we seen this kind of violence. Of course, the EFF has been very vociferous, though, even on the virtual platform. You would have seen Naledi Chirwa being evicted from the House. She's a very vocal member of the party who has, on occasion, also been removed from the virtual platform, especially in the Health Committee. So it's not to say that we haven't seen it, with our own eyes like we have seen over the last 2 days, that the party has not registered their opposition and to issues that are being debated and often get thrown off the virtual platform. But certainly these kinds of scenes we're seeing today, unprecedented in this venue particularly, which is the Good Hope Chamber. It's alongside Tain Hayes, where the President's offices are, so just a short walk. The President walks through the back passages to reach this venue. This is the temporary location for the National Assembly sitting. We've heard a lot this week from MPs during the debate on Parliament, which was earlier this week, that they want a venue where all of them can be present. And so to that point, the EFF only has around, speak under correction, 19 seats in this particular venue, because they need to accommodate all the political parties in a smaller venue. And so today we saw, by my count, at least 12 EFF MPs in the House today. Yesterday only around 5, and all 5 of them were eventually ejected from the chamber. But so it remains to be seen whether when proceedings resume here, whether the remaining MPs will then continue to raise points of order and continue to interject and whether these proceedings will then eventually only get underway, which was the case yesterday, once all of them have been evicted from the chamber. But certainly, Masego, not pleasant to watch this level of attack and violence right here in Parliament. Even though, as you said, we've seen it before, it never makes it okay, and it never makes it easier to watch. Just yesterday, for example, I won't name names, but I went. It was in the restroom and caught one or two of the female MPs just sitting there taking a time out. They said they just couldn't bear to be in this room and to watch these scenes playing out, and they just needed a time out to sit there. So it's not pleasant to watch and to be present when such scenes are playing out so close to you, even if they don't impact some MPs directly and you're not physically harmed. It is still not okay for many to watch and be party to all of this. So it is not something, as you said, we want the world to be watching.
Definitely not, Lindsay. It is embarrassing, and actually I'm using a very light word when I say embarrassing, looking at those visuals that we're still showing the viewers in terms of what happened just a short while ago before the Speaker suspended the business of the House. If you've just joined us, the President was supposed to be responding to the debate that was held in Parliament yesterday after his presidency budget vote, but of course the Speaker had to suspend business of the House because of the EFF being thrown out, physically thrown out of the sitting. But Lindsay, in terms of what you showed us, your colleague and you have shown us with some of the MPs opting to stay in the House, hoping, of course, I assume that the business of the day does continue.